version includes eggshells, and these form really good pebbles. The way that you do it, you boil your egg, take off the shell, and then break up the pieces into stone shapes. Get a bit of PVA glue and press them in until they dry. Sometimes a jam jar of water is a good way of just securing them while you're doing something else. You just let it dry and then you can paint straight over them. So we'll go straight into the C at the back so that we've got a distance. Again with the cobalt blue. This time we can use the white paper to form the waves instead of the masking fluid. So we can go around here, and I'm going to alter some of the shapes of the groin to make it a bit more interesting. We go round here and onto the shore, breaking up the white paper again to form a little bit more reflections of the light. And then we're going to put some brown here for the groin. There we are. Putting it in streaky so that it forms the wood. Bit of blue at the back. I know it's running a bit, but it makes it a bit more diffused. Run this in through here. Different shapes. And then we can put the yellow ochre around the eggshells. Now the eggshells, the natural colour of the eggshells show through. And this is why it's a good idea to use some brown eggs, because that gives them some kind of form and contrast to the paint. And they're very tiny pieces here, and of course they're bigger as they come forward. So we can go around those shapes. Look, they just come right through. Yeah. Around there. A bit darker in the foreground. A bit more brown. And you could form some bigger shapes just with the paint. A bit of burnt sienna. Again, as they go back, smaller and smaller, and as they come forward, big. There we are. Some edges to this. Down with the smaller edge of the brush. Down here. Darker shapes. As the wood goes in between the pebbles. A few darks in between, highlighting their shapes. Here we go. And some broken areas around here. What's so good about acrylics is because you can use it fairly thickly, you can put some light bits around perhaps some of the paint that has oozed into the background. There we go. And then some thicker paint for the edges of the sea. So we've got some foam there. And I'm going to put some white, so we've got a reverse of tones here for some of these in the foreground. So I'm going to have some light ones. There we go. There. A little bit of highlight on here. Using my hog hair brush for the thicker paint. That's complete. In this version, I've put texture paste across the sea there and down the wooden groin and the pebbles. And then it's allowed to dry. I'm going to put some cling film across the back to form the waves. So I'm putting some watery blue, little streaks of watery blue, then some aquamarine. So this is going to be quite colourful. Bit of aquamarine. But still keep it fairly watery because it won't work otherwise. Around there. And a little dab of purple. There we go. A dab of purple there. And more aquamarine in the foreground. So when I've got those washes in, perhaps a tiny touch darker across the back here. Cling film, pull it along here like that and place it to form the waves at the background. You can pull it and push it a bit so that you can manipulate the lines a bit more if you want to. There, and we allow that to dry. Now the cling film has dried, we will pull that off and expose the very tiny channels of light for the sea, and then go straight in and paint the groins themselves. So yellow ochre and brown. This is with a hog hair brush, perhaps a little bit lighter, and some violet and burnt sienna. Now this texture paste is showing up now with a light on it. You've got to be careful that you don't overdo this texturing. It's very tempting to do so because it's lovely to putting it on, but you do have to be very careful. And then we've got some more yellows in the foreground, yellow ochre. Now, can you see the mounds coming up through the paint? Put the paint on. A bit more yellow ochre. I'm going to put a tiny bit of orange in this time to beef up the colours. Bring this in through the background. There we are, through there. You can put the texture paste on either with a palette knife or with a brush, but every time you do so, you do need to clean your implements, because once that has dried, it will stay on anything. It's so difficult to get off. And then we can water this down. Nice contrast between this distance there and here. I need to make this a bit darker. Now, although this gives you an impasto feel to the paint, you do need to go in and repaint some of these because it's sometimes not quite so obvious. So I'm going to put some darker ones, bigger ones here. and some smaller ones. There. A bit more dark into here. And a bit of dark over there. Now, with a smaller brush, I'm going to go into some of the negative shapes with a violet and brown. We can bring these around here. So we're just highlighting and detailing some of the foreground features. You don't need to go around everyone because you'll be there all day, millions of them. But just giving an impression, your eye will feed those details all over the picture. And then we want a bit of highlighting and perhaps a bit of detailing in there. Some lines, some dabs. Deep into the pebbles. And a few more lines at the back here. And a little bit here. So we've got some texture paste here, and we've got some texture paste on the sea and in the foreground and around these smaller pebbles. What we can do is to put pure colour on there as well amongst the texture paste. So that again adds a little bit more excitement, a little bit more variation to it all. Perhaps even putting a little bit of orange in there. And a tiny bit of blue into the background. And just breaking that up on the seashore to complete it. There. Here's our 3 samples, and let's just go through them quickly. This is the masking fluid, and you can see these circles and the wiggly bits on the surf. They're quite sharp lines and they're very detailed, but they're a marvellous accompaniment for your acrylics. This one has got the eggshells, and these are kind of very natural. I like using the eggshells, but they have to be used again with care, and they can be diffused into your work, giving them an extra dimension. And of course, don't forget the big ones, going down to the small ones. Here we've got our cling film through the background, giving a lovely texture. Also the texture paste being added a bit into the sea, down our wooden groin, and swirling around in our pebbles, a gentle impasto effect. So this brings us to the close of this programme, so join me next time for more of Wendy's Top Tips.
Now available to buy. Try these techniques at home whenever you wish. The extended DVD of today's workshop and the book that accompanies this series are now available from the Painting and Drawing channel. For further information and to order your copy, go to www.paintingdrawingchannel.com.